All right, we are live. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Experts Unplugged, speaker spotlights from the Craft Brewers Conference. I'm really excited about today because we are going to go deeper into some of the insights that we have brought back from the conference, which was last week. It was totally amazing. I'm Joanne Newborn of Newborn Evolution, and I'm here today with Marcio Buffolo. He's a certified Pommelier through the American Cider Association. He's a cider maker and a cider judge. He's based in Utah, and he's a Master Brewers Association of the Americas professor and a former head brewer at Shades Brewing, where he led advanced fermentation and specialty beverage programs. And his work's been recognized with multiple World Beer Cup and Great American Beer Festival medals, as well as a GLINTCAP award for cider, reflecting his technical depth and sensory expertise across beer and cider. He brings very practical, education-driven perspectives to fermentation, ingredient expression, and beverage quality. Welcome, Marcio. So I just wanted to ask, how was the conference for you? How was your talk? What were some of your perspectives coming back from Philly?
Yeah, it was it was really nice. Well, first of all, thanks for having me here.
Yeah.
It was really nice conference. I've been to the CBC for the past 10, 11 years, and it's always nice to see the trends and things that are going over there. And the first time, no, second time being there as a cider maker and seeing that everybody's gain attention and want to see and talk more about cider because I think that one of the biggest things on this conference year was the portfolio, how to expand your portfolio, diversify your portfolio. And cider, it is on the growth. So I think everybody was interested to see what the cider can bring to the table, what's the opportunities that we can achieve from that this industry that's not new, especially to the US. Europeans has been drinking and producing cider for millennia, but in US it was growing really well until the prohibition. Prohibition kind of destroy a little bit the cider industry that's picking up again since I'll say since 2015, 2016 was the boom of the craft beer, helps the boom of the craft cider. So everybody was interested to see how much cider can be achievable, how hard it is to produce cider in a brewery space. And my talk was exactly like this: is how to add cider to your tap room,
Yeah.
and also how to produce cider. And that was the two main approach that we took to our talk over there. And it was really interesting. Everybody was very excited about it.
Yeah, I noticed you said that you had completely a full space because there was only like so many samples for people within the talk that you had.
Yeah, we set up tastings, so it's hard to set up a taste for 500, 700 people, right? We have to find cideries in Pennsylvania that were or distributing in Pennsylvania that was allowed to donate some of the ciders to the tasting. So we find five ciders and we four different styles and one surprise. That was more for entertaining the audience.
Yeah.
The goal over there was present four different cider styles, and we have 70 spots with cider in front of them, with a little bit like a note and stuff like that. So all seven spots were full. We have another people that just stop by and watch for a few minutes.
Yeah.
So it was a very successful talk. And the main points that we approach again, it's if you are just a brewery or a tap room that you want to add a tap as a cider, how do you approach your first choice? So if you have if you're an IPA brewery and you have 15, 20 taps of an IPAs, which cider are you gonna put? You're gonna put a hopped cider. They're gonna be a nice bridge between cider and beer, or you're gonna go completely different. Let's go super fruity That's something that you're not offering as your tap room, and then you can have some different kind of audience to your tap room. If you are thinking about producing cider, not
Mm-hmm.
just bringing from outside, what's the easiest way to start? A modern cider that you can buy juice in bulk
Mm-hmm.
and bring in house if you have a license, because some states you require to have a wine license.
Uh-huh.
Few states you can do under brewery license. So if you can do that under brewing license, just bring the juice, put in the tank and ferment. You already have all the capacity, all the controls, just improve your techniques. So few tips we gave few tips for those brewers to avoid major off flavors, and also the samples that we were offering were also to provide that feedback how to avoid mistakes and how to identify mistakes in ciders. So uh, that was the first part of the talk. It's modern cider probably going to be your first introduction. Um for first probably production. It's
Mm-hmm.
easy, it's more accessible. Traditional cider is designed for more places where you can source apples. That will be a little harder to achieve in global scale. That's going to be more regional breweries that can achieve those kind of ciders. They're expensive, they're more classic, they're more refined. Probably they're not your first tap, but it can be your second.
Mm.
Fruited ciders, of course, it's an easy way to do if you have, especially if you already have a fruit um, offering, or that can go really well with seasons. So you can change fruits according to the season. We finish with the botanical or hop ciders. As I said, is a nice bridge gap between beer and cider. At the same time, it can be challenging. Hops are very challenging, especially for those that don't know how to use properly, especially the ones that are not uh, IPA experts.
Mm-hmm.
So, few tips for that. And so the first part was introducing the styles. Then it's one nice data that we collect over there was about 50% of the audience already serving cider in the tap room in
Amazing.
at least one draft. And
Yeah.
then we started talking about how to get a second draft. It's what's going to happen in the second draft. It's a very it's like a try and see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you're gonna add a second draft, and that will gonna split your sales on the first.
Right.
Sometimes that will become your second or third tap. So that kind of approach, it's more dependent on your audience, or your bar, your consumers. But it was part of the talk, like how are we gonna get the second tap of cider and how you approach that. So few of the comments that we have, it's someone already serving regular modern dry cider or modern sweet cider, and then the second one is coming for the fruit,
Mm-hmm.
and that is usually seasonal with fruits there from the season, and that you usually get not it's not dividing from the first step. It's actually gain traction more than dividing. And then comes the other question. What's your third tap? Are you gonna continue to add ciders to your draft because it's making money? You're afraid of losing your characteristics as a brewery offering your beers because now it's taking off your beer sales, maybe?
Right.
Or
Right.
are you gonna add wine on draft because also it's an option?
Right.
Are you gonna go for NA beer, or you can go to an cider. So then they started talking about your portfolio, how much you want to diversify, and how much that will take off your own hands, and comes to a point. It's selling other people product versus making your own.
Yeah. Right. 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 But really, I mean, at the end of the day, it's also, adding into your sales, right? Like you said, you don't want to be diluting your sales. You want to be adding to it. You said something at the beginning that I was really interested in. You said, I've been very focused on today's consumer, right? Today's consumer is very diverse in what they're wanting to drink, and they change quite often. And so I'm sure cider is part of that. But you had said, like, over the past few years, it's gaining more and more popularity. I was curious from your perspective, um, the reasons why it's gaining more popularity.
There's few reasons.
Hmm.
The first reason was the an idea. If you ask for a consumer, what do you think about cider? I guarantee about 50 to 60% will say, no, I don't like cider, it's too sweet.
Hmm.
The concept that cider is always going to be a sweet beverage
Right.
throw off a lot of people. That is because it's mainly the macro cideries produce sweet ciders in the market.
Mm.
And that is the idea. When the craft beer starts, people like to drink lager. No, because that was the idea of macro, guys,
Right.
right? Look what happened today. Everybody drinking a craft lager because it's the boom push towards a more drinkability.
Yep.
So cider is in the same spot. So people think that ciders are sweet. No, ciders are not always sweet. It can be sweet, can be dry, can be fruity, can be so many styles. The second thing was it comes to the wave of health consciousness.
Hmm.
It's a natural gluten free. It
Hmm.
can be completely zero sugar, so it can
Hmm.
ferment completely dry. It can be sessional, so we can get really low ABV. So there are some styles like we call cider can. It's a second press of the apples that contains really low amount of sugar, therefore a really low amount of alcohol. So we're talking about ciders that can be 3.5 to 4% alcohol under 100 calories. So all these small things that comes to the health consciousness applies to cider. And cider will fit right in between beer and wine
Yeah.
when it comes to consumer perspective, not as a style. Cider is their own beverage.
Yeah.
But when it comes to consumer perspective, it's not as high alcohol as cider, as wine. So I can drink 2 or 3 bottles cider. So volume, it's much better.
Hmm.
Comes to a little higher ABV of beer, so that can be a good point of sale. It can be health consciousness in both sides for gluten free. It can comes to low calorie as a beer. So it can be complex flavor. It can bring fruit. So the whole idea of a beverage that include that category of health consciousness gain traction and more education. We're talking about cider being on that edge of educated consumer as craft beer was 15, 20 years ago,
Yeah.
where we used to see breweries open up for talk, discussion, tours, how we're made, how does drinks, and educating people. So I think that's why cider is on the trend right now.
That's great. There's some really great buzzwords that you said there, gluten free, sugar, no added sugars. So, my talk was actually on how to create a better partnership with your distributors once you have a distributor. And a big part of that was making sure that your distributors are educated on your products in a very simple way so that when you go out to the retailers and the restaurants, it's easy for them to be able to sell your product. So in terms of the education piece, which really seems like the really important piece of this, right? Because there's preconceived notions about cider, and there's a lot of great benefits that you just mentioned. What do you think are the best ways that producers can be educating their distributors, or like who the end users are, so it eventually filters down to the consumer as well?
I think it comes to the region. It's a very important because if you are in a cider region producing, so
Hmm.
New York, Michigan, Washington, that will be a little easier to explain to a consumer because they are seeing apples all the time. They're under apple region producers. They can have access to so many different apples styles and probably a lot of cideries that can produce different type of styles. So for that region, probably it'll be easy to educate your distro in a way to show diversity. So
Mhm.
ciders can be so many different ciders. They can have so many different styles. Try and see which one will fit the way you like. The same way beer is approachable. Like there's 125 styles of beer. Some of you're gonna like it.
Right.
For ciders, we have 50 styles, around 40. Let's put 45 styles.
Hmm.
According to the GLINTCAP, we have about 40 some styles on the competition. So there's a cider that you're gonna fit your taste buds. When it comes to regions more on the south or where there's not a lot of cider culture, for example, Arizona and Nevada, they have one cidery in those two states. That show how much cider is popular over there. Basically none. So it's a challenge for distributors to sell in Las Vegas Strip. How gonna tell? How gonna remove a tap from a microbrewery
Right.
to add a cider there? Over there, we're gonna talk about knowing exactly the audience of those bars and those restaurants and
Yeah.
say, hey, a macro or even a craft brewery enter with cucumber sour beer. Well, it did well, yes. So you know they have a specific type of people that go on the area that can try something different and will do well. So at this point, you introduce probably a modern cider with fruit or vegetable. They're probably going to do well over there. So it's a little challenging for distros on the education part to
Yeah.
show diversity on those big regions and special understand your consumer on those non-producing regions. And of course, go to approachable ones. Um, Probably macros will show pricing range that will be like more attractive. But we have producers, really good producers, that are crafts that can compete in the pricing because they grow their own apples. So they can go a little lower in price to compete with macros. So at that point, if pricing is important for distros and bars, they
Yep.
can choose few craft as well that goes with the margins they're expecting for that beverage. And of course, most important on the margin part, it's ciders usually have a higher margin than
It's
beer.
fantastic. Yeah.
So that is a good point of sale uh, for distros to push that
Absolutely.
because there is a little more edge for marketing. There's a little more money for education for that kind of part that craft beer right now is fighting to survive. Those margins are getting thinner and thinner. In cider, we still have that slightly better margin that we can apply for marketing and for education.
Absolutely. No, that's a huge selling point for the suppliers to their distributors and also for the distributors to the retailers because the first thing the retailer does is take out their calculator and they
Yep.
start calculating their margin. So that is a huge upside. Um
There,
that,
there's
Go ahead.
also just one approach on that, not specific margins, but
Yeah.
if you are specifically in the East Coast, you can serve pints with ice because that is a very common thing to do in Europe, and that reduce the amount you pour in a 16-ounce pint. So your margin goes even further.
Even more amazing.
Yeah.
Those such good points, such great points. I'd love to know, like, what is like the biggest surprising trend or insight that you got from this conference last week? Because you've been to so many as well,
Yeah.
you know.
I was surprising and sad at the same time to see how many auction brokers were available on the floor.
Interesting.
Auction brokers were not a team; was like one,
Yeah.
maybe two bigger guys,
Mhm.
and I saw more than I count eight. For sure, could be more. That's a sad part of the industry being on that accommodation reconciliation
Mm.
phase.
Yeah.
So that was a surprise, sad surprise, but it was surprised to see how many were there.
Wow.
Also, at the same time, not seeing uh, big machinery guys who were not there, like
I only saw a
from
couple.
GA. Yeah, at KHS, those big guys were not on the floor because we know it's time of reconciliation. So there's so many used market equipments on the market. So it was again that same part. But I also was happy to see a lot of craft malting guys were like a few years ago, we were talking about two or three small craft malting house, and I saw so many this year bringing old style malting, old style, like very manual labor floor malting companies that were super cool to see them over there. I always love to see the advanced products in hops. Those are really hard science, hardcore science to achieve flavors and aromas without losses. So those advanced products are something top of the art for me when it comes to science. That's always love to see them and how the fruit is evolving. We used to see also one or two fruit companies are seeing more and more different process, different way to present the fruit. That was also super cool to see what they're bringing in terms of concentrate flavors, less water, less pulp, less vegetable material, more flavor without much intervention. It's basically membranes filtration and stuff like that. So those raw ingredients were way nicer to see this year than we used to see in the past.
Awesome. Awesome. So I want to ask you, like, if there's one thing that you want people to know about you, what would you like to leave them with? And how can people get in touch with you?
All right, so I am a beverage passion and come from science. My background is science, so
Yeah.
I love science. I love everything that's involved science and beverage industry. Um, we used to brew beer. Now I make cider, making wine, uh, coffee. I have coffee side business as well. So everything that comes to beverage and science, I am a fictionary. Gravy, love technology, love science, involve those things. If anybody wanna like contact me, my personal email or my Facebook and Instagram, just look for my name. I'm probably the only Marcio Buffalo in the world, so it's gonna be probably easy to find. Yeah, I'm pretty open. It's both are open social media, so just hit me up. My LinkedIn also a little updated, so should be fine to find me. And yeah, anytime I am a part of the Master Brewers Association of the Americas, so I am a teacher over there, part of the American Cider Association. So we are all talking about alcoholic beverages that are important for Americans, and I am part of them. Mountain West Cider is where I work for. We're also engaged in Education Insider and the competitions around the world. So I am very advocated for competitions, World Beer Cup, Great American Beer Fest, GLINTCAP. It doesn't matter. Competitions makes your product better. Even though if you don't win a medal, it's okay because the feedback will
Yeah.
allow you to get better and better, and that will reflect in your sales over time.
Fantastic. Wonderful. And I just want to say that I'm going to be talking about what the consumer is seeking in today's market in terms of the alcohol beverage industry. On May 13th, my company runs a quarterly executive forum. Every quarter, there's no cost to it. We just create a safe space for high level leaders to have these conversations. And I know suppliers and distributors are really wanting to see what's going on from the consumer perspective. So I'm having a panel discussion of on-premise and off-premise owners that are talking about what they're seeing. So if anybody would like an invitation, if you're listening to this, just connect with me on LinkedIn, Joanne Newborn, and we will get an invite out to you. So I want to thank you so much, Marcio. This was so educational. I just enjoyed this so much. And I mean, I have about 3 decades in the alcohol beverage industry. So I am totally geeking out on all of this. So I want to thank you so much for spending time with me today.
Oh, thank you. It was my pleasure to be with you today.
Great.